The winding coastal road had narrowed to little more than a whisper of asphalt, hugging the cliff face like a secret. Ilara gripped the steering wheel, her knuckles white, the last vestiges of city tension clinging to her like a shroud. Below, the slate-grey Atlantic churned, an endless, restless spirit mirroring her own. She'd driven for hours, leaving behind the concrete canyons and the suffocating demands of a project that had drained her dry body and soul. Aethelgard Manor, a name she'd found in an obscure travel magazine, promised solitude, a return to something wild and elemental. A place to rediscover the architect she used to be, before the corporate machine had swallowed her passion whole. As her small rental car finally crested the last rise, Aethelgard Manor emerged from the mist-kissed landscape, a formidable, ancient silhouette against the bruised twilight sky. It wasn't a modern resort, sleek and sterile. This was stone, ivy and history, rising from the cliff edge like a sentinel. Turrets, leaded windows and a grand carved oak door beckoned her, promising not just shelter, but a story. Parking the car in the gravel courtyard, Ilara killed the engine, and the sudden silence was profound, broken only by the distant roar of the ocean and the cry of a seagull. She took a deep breath, the air cool and tasting of salt and damp earth. This was it. Her escape. A soft light spilled from one of the lower windows as she approached the heavy oak door. Before she could lift the antique brass knocker, it swung inward with a low groan, revealing a man framed against the warm glow of the interior. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and utterly unexpected. Not the kindly, silver-haired innkeeper she'd vaguely imagined. His hair, dark as midnight, was swept back from a face etched with a rugged handsomeness that spoke of both strength and a quiet intelligence. His eyes, the color of a stormy sea, met hers with an intensity that held her captive. A faint, almost imperceptible smile touched his lips, a slow unfurling that sent an unexpected shiver down her spine. "Ilara, I presume?" His voice was a low timbre, rich and carrying the soft melodic lilt of an Irish accent, like stones tumbling in a clear stream. "Welcome to Aethelgard, I'm Rhys." His gaze lingered, warm and assessing, and Ilara felt a flush creep up her neck. She hadn't anticipated such a presence. She was used to men in sharp suits, direct and businesslike. Rhys wore a dark open-necked shirt that hinted at the sculpted lines beneath, and a pair of dark trousers. He looked less like a host and more like an ancient guardian of the manor, or perhaps a poet lost to time. "Yes, hello. Thank you," she managed, feeling suddenly awkward and aware of the slight tremor in her voice. Beautiful." She gestured vaguely at the grand entrance hall, which was exactly as she'd hoped. Stone floors, a vast fireplace crackling with a welcoming fire, and tapestries depicting scenes of forgotten lore. Rhys stepped aside, inviting her in. "Come in from the chill. Your journey was long, I imagine?" He took her small carry-on bag with a casual ease that belied its weight. His fingers brushed hers for a fleeting second, and a jolt, like static electricity, sparked between them. She told herself it was just the cold, the surprise, the long drive. He led her through the hall, the scent of wood smoke and something subtly masculine, sandalwood and sea salt, filling her senses. "Your room is on the second floor, overlooking the western gardens, and, of course, the ocean." He spoke with a quiet efficiency, yet his presence was anything but understated. Every movement was fluid, graceful. Up a wide, curving staircase, under the watchful eyes of ancestral portraits, they ascended. The manor hummed with a quiet elegance, a sense of deep history that Ilara, the architect, felt immediately drawn to. She noticed the intricate carving on the banister, the perfect proportions of the windows, the way light was carefully considered. Someone here understood design. Her room was breathtaking. High ceilings, a four-poster bed draped in crisp white linen, and a wide bay window that opened onto a small balcony. Beyond, the wild, untamed beauty of the coastline stretched into the fading light, the ocean a tumultuous canvas of grey and silver. A chill wind whispered through the open window, carrying the scent of salt and gorse. "I hope this suits you," Rhys said, setting her bag down beside a plush armchair. His voice was softer now, almost intimate in the quiet room. Ilara walked to the window, leaning out slightly to feel the wind on her face. It's perfect, Rhys. More than perfect. She turned to face him, a genuine smile gracing her lips for the first time in weeks. Thank you. His gaze was still intense, a deep well she felt herself beginning to fall into. The manor is yours to explore, Ilara. Dinner is at 8, in the small dining room. If you need anything at all, just call down. He hesitated, his eyes flicking from hers to the ocean outside, then back again. Rest now. You look as though you need it. With a nod, he turned and left, closing the door softly behind him. Ilara stood in the sudden silence, the echo of his voice lingering in the air. She hadn't realized how utterly exhausted she was until that moment. The tension, the travel, the unexpected encounter, it all converged. She unpacked slowly, her movements deliberate, savoring the solitude and the quiet grandeur of her surroundings. She showered, letting the warm water wash away the last remnants of her journey, then slipped into a soft silk dressing gown. The sky had deepened to an inky black by the time she descended for dinner. Rhys hadn't mentioned other guests, and the manor seemed hushed, as if holding its breath. She found the small dining room through an archway off the main hall, a cozy space with a single table set for two, glowing under the warm light of a chandelier. Rhys was already there, standing by the fireplace, a glass of amber liquid in his hand. He looked up as she entered, and his eyes softened, a faint warmth blooming in their depths. Ilara, he said, a simple greeting that felt like a caress. You look refreshed. She felt it too. The weight lifting, the tightness in her shoulders easing. I am. This place. It's exactly what I needed. She gestured to the room, the flickering firelight casting dancing shadows on the rich wood paneling. It's magnificent. He gestured to the table. Please. I hope you don't mind a quiet dinner. We have no other guests this week. A wave of relief, coupled with a strange flutter of anticipation, washed over her. No forced small talk with strangers. Just him. And her. He pulled out her chair, and as she sat, his hand brushed her back, a brief, electrifying touch through the silk of her robe. It was enough to make her breath catch. He settled into the chair opposite, and a young woman, silent as a shadow, appeared to serve a delicate seafood bisque. They spoke sparingly at first about the weather, the journey. But soon, the conversation deepened. Ilara found herself telling him about her work, her frustrations with the soulless corporate projects, her yearn to create something meaningful again. She hadn't realized how starved she was for a truly engaged listener. Rhys listened intently, his gaze unwavering, occasionally interjecting with a perceptive question or a thoughtful observation that showed a surprising depth of understanding. Architecture, at its core, is about creating spaces that nurture the human spirit, isn't it? He mused, swirling the wine in his glass. Not just about function, but about emotion, memory, sanctuary. Ilara felt a thrill of recognition. Exactly. It's what I lost sight of. I was building monuments to profit margins, not to life. She felt a vulnerability she hadn't expected, an openness she rarely shared. But there was something in Rhys's presence that encouraged it, a silent invitation to lay down her burdens. He smiled, a slow, tender curve of his lips that made her heart skip a beat. Perhaps Athelgard can remind you. He paused, his eyes holding hers. This manor was built by my ancestors, generation after generation adding their own whispers to its stone. It has seen joy, sorrow, passion, and quiet contemplation. It has sheltered many seeking something more. The meal continued, each course a symphony of subtle flavors. They talked about books, about art, about the wild beauty of the coast. Ilara learned that Rhys had inherited Athelgard from a distant relative, leaving a life she didn't quite grasp to restore the decaying estate. There was a hint of something deeper, a past he wasn't sharing, but it only added to his allure. By the time the last of the dessert plates were cleared, the conversation had woven a delicate, intricate web between them. The air in the room felt thick, charged with an unspoken understanding, a nascent connection that hummed beneath the surface of their words. Perhaps a digestive in the library, Reese suggested, his voice a low invitation. Ilara agreed, her pulse quickening. The library was a room she'd glimpsed on her way upstairs, a haven of dark wood, leather-bound books, and the scent of aged paper. He led her there, the fire in the hearth casting a warm, inviting glow. He poured 2 glasses of amber liquid from a crystal decanter, the rich scent of aged whiskey filling the air. He handed her a glass, his fingers brushing hers again, a contact that felt less accidental this time, more deliberate. "Tell me, Ilara," he began, settling into a deep leather armchair opposite hers, the firelight playing across his features, softening their rugged angles. "What do you hope to find here truly?" She took a sip of the whiskey, the warmth spreading through her veins. It was a potent, honest question. She looked into the dancing flames, then met his gaze. "Hope? I hope to remember who I am. To find the quiet voice that got lost in the noise. To feel something real again." Her voice was soft, almost a whisper. "And perhaps, to be inspired." His eyes held hers, deep and knowing. Inspiration often finds us in unexpected places, when we least expect it, when we are open to its touch. His words were gentle, yet they held a profound weight, a double meaning that resonated deep within her. The silence that followed wasn't awkward, but charged, brimming with unspoken thoughts. The only sounds were the crackle of the fire and the distant sigh of the ocean. Ilara felt herself drawn into the quiet intensity of his presence, every nerve ending alive. Reese leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees, his gaze never leaving hers. "I believe," he said, his voice dropping to a low murmur, "that sometimes, to truly find ourselves, we must allow ourselves to be found, to let go of the control, the expectations, and simply feel." His words hung in the air, a silent challenge, an invitation. Ilara felt a blush creep up her chest. She felt him seeing past her polite facade, past the carefully constructed walls she'd built around herself. He was seeing her. He rose slowly, moving with an unhurried grace that drew her eyes to the play of shadows on his frame. He came to stand before her, close enough that she could feel the subtle warmth radiating from him, the faint scent of sandalwood, and something uniquely him. "Oh!" He reached out, his hand hovering for a moment, then gently cupping her chin, his thumb brushing lightly over her jawline. The touch was feather-light, yet it sent a jolt of pure sensation through her, making her heart hammer against her ribs. Her breath hitched. His eyes, dark and fathomless, searched hers, seeking permission, offering a silent question. "Ilara," he murmured, his voice a husky whisper, barely audible above the crackle of the fire. "There are whispers under these old stones. Whispers of desires, of longings, of passions that have echoed through time. Can you hear them?" She could. She could hear them in the thrumming of her own blood, in the sudden heat that flared between them, in the silent language of his gaze. She could hear them in the wild beating of her heart, responding to his proximity, his touch. He leaned closer, his head tilting, his eyes still locked on hers. The scent of him enveloped her completely now. Warm, intoxicating, potent. Her lips parted slightly, a silent invitation, a desperate yearning she hadn't known she possessed. His thumb stroked her jawline once more, a tender, lingering caress, then his fingers threaded into her hair, gently tilting her head back further. Her eyes fluttered closed for a moment, savoring the exquisite anticipation, the electric current that now arced between them. She felt his breath on her cheek, warm and soft, then the brush of his lips against her temple, light as a butterfly's wing. He traced a path down her cheekbone, lingering at the corner of her mouth, a teasing promise that left her trembling. "Tell me, Ilara," he whispered, his voice a low rumble against her skin, sending shivers through her entire body. "What do you truly long for here tonight?" Her mind reeled, a delicious confusion. She wanted to say everything, to confess the hunger that had awakened within her, the desire to feel his lips on hers, truly, deeply. But the words caught in her throat, replaced by a soft, almost inaudible gasp, as his lips, finally, exquisitely brushed against her own. Not a kiss, not yet, but a feather-light promise, a breath away from fulfillment. Her hand, as if on its own accord, reached up, her fingers tentatively brushing against the soft stubble on his jaw, feeling the warmth of his skin. The touch was like striking a match, igniting a fire that had long lain dormant within her. He groaned, a low guttural sound from deep in his chest, and his hand tightened gently in her hair, pulling her fractionally closer. Her body arched slightly, drawn to his like a moth to a flame. The air between them was thick, heavy with unspoken longing, with the weight of centuries of whispers that had finally found their voice in her own yearning heart. His lips, so close, so tantalizingly near, hovered over hers, and she could feel the heat radiating from them, the scent of whiskey and rees filling her. Her eyelids fluttered open, meeting his gaze dark and intense, a silent question, a shared understanding. And then he leaned in. His lips, finally, slowly, meeting hers. The kiss deepened, a slow, exquisite unfolding. His lips were soft at first, a tentative exploration that sent a shiver of pure delight through her. It was a whisper of a kiss, a promise, a question that her own trembling lips answered with an eager sigh. The scent of him, that intoxicating blend of old whiskey, wood smoke, and something uniquely rees, filled her senses, intoxicating her further. Her hands, as if they had a will of their own, lifted, finding purchase on his broad shoulders, then sliding up the strong column of his neck, her fingers tangling in the silken strands of hair at his nape. He groaned, a low, guttural sound that vibrated against her mouth, a sound of pure male pleasure that ignited a corresponding heat deep within her belly. His hands, previously hesitant, now claimed her waist, pulling her flush against him. The hard planes of his chest met the soft curves of hers, a perfect fit that felt both utterly new and eternally familiar. The kiss deepened, becoming more insistent, more hungry. His tongue, a velvet probe, traced the seam of her lips, a silent invitation that she readily accepted, parting for him. And then he was there, a soft, sensual dance that stole her breath and every coherent thought. It was a taste of wildness and restraint, of ancient longing and present desire, a dizzying cocktail that made her head spin. She kissed him back with an urgency she hadn't known she possessed, her own body alive with a fervent need that mirrored his. The world outside them receded, melting into a blurry hum. All that existed was the intoxicating press of his lips, the rhythmic dance of their tongues, the exquisite friction of their bodies. The fire in the hearth crackled, mirroring the inferno that had erupted within her. Each brush of his thumb against her spine, each gentle tug on her hair, each soft nip on her lower lip, sent electric currents through her veins, making her tremble. He pulled back just enough to break the kiss, but their foreheads remained pressed together, their breaths mingling. His eyes, dark as midnight, gazed into hers, now smoky with desire. "Elara," he murmured, his voice a low rasp that sent shivers down her spine. "You have no idea how long I've waited for this." Her heart thrummed against her ribs, a frantic drumbeat. "And I," she whispered, her voice barely audible, "for you." He kissed her again, this time with a profound tenderness that moved her to her core. It was a slow, worshipful kiss, a testament to the depth of emotion that had simmered between them for so long. His hands slid from her waist, tracing a path up her ribs, until his thumbs brushed the underside of her breasts. A soft gasp escaped her lips, and he took it, swallowing the sound, his kiss deepening further, becoming bolder. Her own hands tightened in his hair, pulling him closer still, as if she could somehow merge with him, become one with this incredible sensation. The rough wool of his jacket, the crisp linen of his shirt, the warmth of his skin beneath, all registered against her own. She felt the hard ridge of his desire pressing against her, a thrilling testament to his own longing. and a flush of heat spread through her entire being. He slowly, reluctantly, broke the kiss once more, his lips lingering against hers for a moment, as if memorizing the taste, the feel. His gaze was heavy, intense, seeking permission, seeking affirmation. "May I?" he breathed, his eyes dropping to her mouth, then lower, to the pulse beating wildly at the base of her throat. Ilara could only nod, her voice caught somewhere in her constricted throat. The unspoken question hung in the air, thick with anticipation, heavy with the weight of centuries. It was not just about what came next physically, but about the profound shift occurring between them, the crossing of a threshold into a shared intimacy that felt both forbidden and utterly destined. His hands, warm and strong, moved from her waist, slowly, deliberately, tracing the curve of her hips. He pulled her even closer, until there was no space left between them, her body molding against his. The scent of old parchment and beeswax, usually so comforting, now seemed to hum with a new energy, a silent witness to their burgeoning passion. The flickering firelight cast dancing shadows on the towering bookshelves, making the ancient volumes seem to lean in, observing, approving. Rhys's gaze never left hers, a silent conversation passing between them, a communion of souls that transcended words. He lowered his head, his lips brushing against her temple, then trailing a path along her jawline, sending delicious shivers through her. She tilted her head back, offering him access, her eyes fluttering closed as his lips found the sensitive skin beneath her ear, then lingered at the hollow of her throat. A soft moan escaped her, and she arched into him, her fingers clutching the lapels of his jacket. "You're exquisite, Ilara," he murmured against her skin, his voice thick with emotion, sending a wave of warmth through her. "More beautiful than any legend, more captivating than any story ever told." His words, whispered like a secret in the hushed library, sent a flush blooming across her cheeks. She felt utterly seen, utterly desired in a way she never had before. Her own hands, trembling slightly, ventured further, sliding beneath his jacket, feeling the taut muscle of his back beneath the crisp linen of his shirt. His skin was warm, smooth, and incredibly inviting. He responded with a deep, shuddering breath, his hands moving lower, cupping her derriere, lifting her slightly, pressing her more firmly against his undeniable arousal. The raw, primal sensation of him against her sent a shockwave through her, a delicious jolt that made her knees weak. She wrapped her legs around his, instinctively seeking a closer connection, a deeper embrace. He groaned again, a sound of pure pleasure and burgeoning need. He began to move, a slow, sensual sway that mimicked an ancient rhythm, a dance as old as time itself. Her body responded without conscious thought, swaying with him, her hips grinding gently against his. The friction was electric, a tantalizing promise of what lay ahead. With a soft groan, he lifted her slightly, her feet leaving the ground, and carried her a few steps, turning them gently until her back was against the cool, solid wood of one of the towering bookshelves. The scent of old paper and leather enveloped them, a silent testament to the centuries of knowledge and stories held within these walls, now witnessing a new one unfold. He didn't break the kiss, but rather deepened it, his mouth taking hers with a renewed urgency, a delicious plundering that left her breathless and yearning for more. Her hands, still tangled in his hair, pulled him closer, her fingers digging gently into his scalp. She felt herself losing control, willingly, joyously, surrendering to the overwhelming tide of sensation. Her mind, usually so precise and analytical, was now a swirling vortex of desire, her senses heightened to an exquisite degree. She tasted whiskey and Rhys, felt the rough wool of his jacket against her arms, heard the soft thud of their hearts against each other, saw the dance of the firelight through her fluttering eyelids. He finally broke the kiss, his lips red and swollen, his eyes dark with a hunger that mirrored her own. He leaned his forehead against hers, both of them breathing heavily, the air around them thick with unspoken desires. His hands moved from her hips, tracing a path up her sides, until his thumbs rested just beneath the swell of her breasts. The delicate lace of her chemise felt suddenly inadequate, a flimsy barrier against the intensity of his touch. "Ilara," he whispered again, his voice raw. "I want you. More than I've wanted anything in a lifetime." His honesty, his vulnerability, struck a chord deep within her. It wasn't just physical desire. It was a profound yearning for connection, a recognition of the bond that had been forming between them, slow and steady, like the turning of the earth. "And I, Urius," she breathed, her voice trembling with emotion. "I want you too." He lowered his head, his lips brushing against her collarbone, then trailing down to the delicate curve of her shoulder, where the fabric of her dress began. With a gentle hand, he pushed the loose sleeve of her gown down, exposing the smooth skin of her shoulder. His lips were warm, soft, a tantalizing contrast to the cool air of the library, and she shivered, not from cold, but from pure, unadulterated pleasure. He kissed her shoulder, then the soft skin of her upper arm, his touch reverent, worshipful. Her breath hitched in her throat as he continued his downward journey, his lips leaving a trail of fire in their wake. Her dress, a simple velvet gown, was designed for ease of movement, and the fabric was soft and yielding. He gently nudged the sleeve further down, exposing more of her décolletage, the swell of her breast. A soft gasp escaped her as his warm breath ghosted over her exposed skin, then his lips followed, tracing the delicate curve of her sternum. Her head fell back against the cool wood of the bookshelf, her eyes closed, her body arching into his touch, silently pleading for more. She felt utterly vulnerable, utterly exposed, yet fiercely protected in his embrace. His hands, still at her sides, moved with exquisite slowness, his fingers brushing against the laces of her gown. It was a simple lacing designed to be easily undone, and his touch was a gentle question. She opened her eyes, meeting his intense gaze, and saw the raw desire, the tender yearning, reflected there. She nodded, a silent permission, a surrender to the inevitable beautiful storm that was brewing between them. With a soft tug, he undid the simple lacing, the velvet fabric loosening, falling away from her skin. The cool air of the library brushed against her, sending goosebumps dancing across her skin, which was quickly replaced by the radiating heat of his body, his gaze. He carefully, slowly, pushed the velvet from her shoulders, letting it pool around her waist, revealing the delicate lace chemise she wore beneath. It was a whisper of a garment, fine and sheer, designed to tantalize rather than conceal. Rias's eyes, wide and dark, devoured the sight, a soft groan rumbling in his chest. His fingers, warm and calloused, traced the delicate lace, then dipped beneath, brushing against the warm, soft skin of her breast. Ilara's breath caught in her throat, a soft whimper escaping her lips. Her breasts, already swollen and sensitive from the intensity of their kisses, tingled under his touch. His thumb brushed over her nipple, which immediately tightened into a hard, aching bud. She arched into his hand, a silent plea for more, for the exquisite torment to turn into blissful release. He watched her, his expression a mixture of awe and fierce hunger. His head dipped, and he kissed her again, a deep, consuming kiss that stole her remaining breath. As their mouths melded, his fingers continued their exquisite exploration, cupping her breast, his thumbs circling her nipple with tantalizing slowness. The world narrowed to this, to the burning touch of his hand, the intoxicating taste of his kiss, the rapid beat of her own heart against her ribs. When he finally broke the kiss, his eyes were still locked on hers, pupils dilated with desire. "You are breathtaking," he whispered, his voice hoarse, truly breathtaking. He then lowered his head, his dark hair brushing against her cheek as he knelt slightly, his lips finding the swell of her exposed breast above the lace. A jolt of pure pleasure shot through her, and she gasped, her fingers tangling in his hair, holding him close, urging him on. His lips were impossibly soft, impossibly warm, as he tasted her skin, then gently suckled, sending a wave of electric sensation coursing through her. Her knees buckled, and she would have slid to the floor if not for his strong arms supporting her, holding her against the bookshelf. She felt a profound connection to him, a sense of belonging that transcended time and space. It was as if every fiber of her being had been waiting for this moment, for his touch, for his kiss, for the ancient magic that now hummed between them. He continued to lavish attention on her breast, alternating between soft kisses, gentle nips, and the exquisite pull of his mouth, drawing her deep into a realm of pure sensation. Her body was a symphony of trembling nerves, her skin alive and hypersensitive. She felt the blood rush through her veins, a hot, liquid fire. With a soft moan, she arched her back, offering herself more fully to him. Her fingers tightened in his hair, a silent plea. He responded by shifting slightly, his hand moving to cup her other breast, his thumb circling the hardened peak through the delicate lace. The dual sensations were almost too much, a sweet agony that pushed her to the edge of control. "Reese," she breathed, her voice a ragged whisper. "Please." She didn't know what she was asking for, only that she needed more, everything. He lifted his head, his eyes blazing, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He looked at her, truly looked at her, his gaze sweeping over her flushed skin, her trembling lips, her dilated pupils. "What is it you need, Alara?" he murmured, his voice a seductive rumble. "Tell me." His question, so direct, so intimate, made her blush even deeper, yet it also emboldened her. "You," she whispered. "I need you." A smile, slow and incredibly sensual, spread across his lips, transforming his rugged features into something even more devastatingly handsome. He rose, pulling her up with him, until she was once again pressed flush against his body, her breasts aching deliciously against his chest. He lowered his head, capturing her lips in another deep, soul-stirring kiss, one that tasted of desire and promise. His hands, no longer just exploring, now moved with a purpose. He reached behind her, his fingers finding the delicate ties of her chemise. With a practiced ease he untied them, and the sheer fabric slipped from her shoulders, pooling around her waist, joining her velvet gown. She stood before him, clad only in her undergarments and the faint glow of the firelight, utterly exposed, utterly vulnerable, yet feeling more powerful than she ever had. His eyes, dark as the deepest forest, took her in, lingering on the soft curves of her stomach, the gentle swell of her hips. He swallowed hard, his gaze returning to hers, filled with a raw primal hunger that made her own core clench in anticipation. He reached out, his fingers tracing the delicate curve of her hip bone, then moving lower, towards the soft nest between her thighs. Ilara gasped, her body trembling violently under his touch. The intimacy of it, the sheer audacity, sent a shockwave through her. Her legs threatened to give way, but his strong arms held her steady, his gaze never leaving hers, a silent question, a shared understanding of the profound step they were about to take. His touch was light, feather-soft, yet utterly electrifying. He brushed against the delicate fabric of her linen undergarments, a thin barrier that felt suddenly monumental. She could feel the heat radiating from his palm, the slight tremor in his fingers. He paused, his thumb brushing against the soft mound of her femininity, and a low moan escaped her. "Are you certain, Ilara?" he whispered, his voice thick with emotion, his eyes searching hers for any hesitation. "Once we begin, there will be no turning back." Her mind, despite the swirling desire, was clear. She had waited for this, for him, for a lifetime. "Yes," she breathed, her voice firm, resolute. "Yes, Reese, I am certain." A flicker of pure relief, mingled with fierce triumph, crossed his features. He leaned in, capturing her lips in a deep, possessive kiss, a silent declaration of his claim. As their mouths melded, his fingers, with a delicate touch, found the ties of her linen undergarments and began to loosen them. The fabric fell away, a soft whisper against her skin, and she stood before him, completely nude, bathed in the amber glow of the fire. The air, already thick with their desire, seemed to crackle with an almost tangible energy. Her cheeks flushed crimson, but she met his gaze, her own eyes alight with a fierce, unwavering desire that matched his. His gaze swept over her body, a slow, worshipful journey that made every inch of her skin tingle. He reached out, his hand trembling slightly, and cupped her bare breast, his thumb brushing over her hardened nipple. A soft gasp escaped her lips, and she arched into his touch, her eyes fluttering closed. "You are perfection," he murmured, his voice husky with emotion, "absolute perfection." He then knelt before her, slowly, reverently, his eyes never leaving hers. The sight of him, a powerful ancient being, kneeling before her, sent a jolt through her very soul. It was an act of profound devotion, a surrender of his own formidable strength to the nascent power of their connection. His hands, large and warm, rested on her hips, his thumbs tracing the delicate curve of her pelvic bones. He leaned in, his dark hair brushing against her inner thigh, and his lips, warm and soft, found the delicate skin of her inner thigh, just above the juncture of her legs. Ilara gasped, a sharp intake of breath that was half shock, half pure ecstasy. Her body instinctively tensed, then relaxed, melting into his touch. This was new, uncharted territory, a profound intimacy that transcended anything she had ever imagined. She felt utterly consumed, utterly cherished, utterly alive. His tongue, warm and wet, traced a path upwards, towards the very heart of her femininity. The sensation was exquisite, a slow, tantalizing build-up that made her entire body thrum with anticipation. She clutched his shoulders, her fingers digging into the rough wool of his jacket, her breath coming in short, sharp gasps. He worked his magic slowly, deliberately, exploring her with a tender reverence that brought tears to her eyes. Each stroke of his tongue, each gentle suckle, each soft flick, sent waves of pleasure through her, building, until she felt herself on the precipice of something vast and overwhelming. Her body began to tremble uncontrollably, a deep, primal tremor that shook her to her core. Her hips arched towards him, instinctively seeking more, her fingers tangling in his dark hair, urging him on. "Reese," she whimpered. "Oh, Reese, please." He answered her plea with a deeper, more insistent exploration, his tongue finding her most sensitive point, circling it with exquisite precision. The world dissolved into a kaleidoscope of colors behind her closed eyelids, a symphony of pure sensation. The fire roared in the hearth, a mirror to the inferno within her. And then, she shattered. A wave of pure, unadulterated pleasure crashed over her, ripping through her body, leaving her gasping and shaking in his arms. Her legs gave out completely, and she would have fallen if he hadn't risen, sweeping her into his strong arms, holding her close against his chest. She buried her face in the crook of his neck, breathing in his scent, her body still trembling from the aftershocks of her release. He held her tightly, stroking her hair, pressing soft kisses to her temple, murmuring soft, unintelligible words against her skin. After a long moment, when her breathing had finally begun to steady, and the tremors subsided, she pulled back slightly, looking up at him, her eyes still hazy with lingering pleasure. His eyes were dark, filled with a deep tenderness and a fierce satisfaction. "Are you all right, my Ilara?" he whispered, his thumb gently caressing her cheekbone. She nodded, a small, blissful smile playing on her lips. "More than all right," she breathed. "I've never felt anything like it." He smiled, a slow, sensual curve of his lips that made her heart flutter. "Good," he murmured, for that was just the beginning. He carried her through the vast, shadowed library, past towering shelves of silent witnesses, past ancient globes and forgotten maps, towards a small, secluded alcove she hadn't noticed before. It was tucked away behind a particularly tall bookcase, shielded from the main hall by a heavy velvet curtain. He pushed aside the curtain with his shoulder, revealing a cozy, intimate space. A plush, oversized chaise lounge was nestled there, covered in thick, dark velvet cushions, inviting and luxurious. A small, intricately carved wooden table beside it held a flickering oil lamp, casting a warm golden glow on the scene. A forgotten book lay open on the table, its pages yellowed with age, but its story momentarily forgotten. He gently lowered her onto the chaise, settling her amongst the soft cushions. The velvet was cool against her still sensitive skin, a comforting contrast to the heat still coursing through her veins. He didn't release her immediately, but rather knelt beside the chaise, his gaze still fixed on hers, a silent question passing between them. "You are cold," he stated, his voice soft, noticing the slight shiver that ran through her. He reached for a heavy, fur-lined throw draped over the back of the chaise, and with tender care, he wrapped it around her, tucking it snugly around her bare shoulders, his fingers lingering on her skin. The warmth of the fur, combined with his proximity, brought a wave of comfort and security. She leaned her head back against the cushions, watching him, her heart filled with a profound sense of peace and burgeoning love. He sat on the edge of the chaise, facing her, his hand resting gently on her hip, his thumb stroking the soft skin. The firelight from the main hearth still cast long dancing shadows into their alcove, making the world outside their intimate space seem distant and unreal. The only sounds were the soft crackle of the fire, the gentle hiss of the oil lamp, and the rhythmic beat of their own hearts. "Tell me, Ilara," he began, his voice a low, melodic rumble, "what do you truly desire? Beyond this moment between us." He gestured vaguely around the ancient library, then back to their intertwined hands. "What does your heart yearn for in this life?" His question was unexpected, yet utterly fitting for the setting, for the profound intimacy they had just shared. It was a question that invited true vulnerability, a deeper connection than just the physical. She looked into his dark, ancient eyes, seeing not just desire, but a profound wisdom, a quiet strength. I desire to understand," she began, her voice soft, almost a whisper, "to unravel the mysteries of this world, of the past, to find the truths hidden within these walls, within the ancient texts, to contribute something meaningful, to leave a mark, however small, on the tapestry of history." She paused, then met his gaze, a shy smile gracing her lips. "And perhaps to find a love that transcends time, a connection that feels like coming home." He listened intently, his gaze unwavering, a profound understanding in his eyes. He squeezed her hip gently, a silent affirmation. "And you, Reese?" she asked, emboldened by his openness. "What does your heart truly desire?" A shadow, fleeting and ancient, passed through his eyes, quickly replaced by a quiet resolve. "My desire," he began, his voice deeper now, imbued with the weight of centuries, "is to protect, to safeguard the knowledge, the balance, the very essence of what makes this world magical, to ensure that the ancient truths are not lost, not corrupted by ignorance or malice." He paused, his gaze softening as he looked at her. "And perhaps to find a companion in this long vigil, someone with whom to share the burden and the beauty of eternity." His words hung in the air, potent and heavy with meaning. A companion in eternity. The phrase resonated deep within her soul, a silent echo of her own yearning. She reached out, her fingers tracing the strong line of his jaw, feeling the slight stubble beneath her touch. "Is that what you see in me, Riss?" she whispered, her voice barely audible, "a companion for your vigil." He captured her hand, pressing a soft kiss to her palm, his gaze intense. "More than that, Ilara," he murmured, his eyes blazing with an ancient fire. "Much, much more. I see a light that has been missing for centuries, a warmth that I thought I had forgotten. I see a partner, a confidante, a kindred spirit. And yes," he leaned in, his lips brushing against hers, "I see a love that I have only ever dreamed of." His words, spoken with such earnestness, such raw emotion, brought a fresh wave of tears to her eyes. This was it, the connection she had only dared to imagine, the love that transcended the mundane. She felt her heart unfurl, blossoming open, utterly vulnerable, utterly complete. He leaned in, his lips finally, slowly, meeting hers once more, a tender, lingering kiss that promised forever. It was not a kiss of hunger, but of deep affection, of profound connection, of a shared destiny that was only just beginning to unfold amidst the silent stories of the ancient library. The fire still crackled, the oil lamp still glowed, and the shadows still danced. But in that intimate alcove, a new dawn was breaking, warm and full of promise. The night was far from over, and their story, a tapestry woven from ancient whispers and newfound passion, was only just beginning to truly write itself. The kiss lingered, a silent symphony of shared breath and accelerating heartbeats. His lips, soft and knowing, explored hers with a tender urgency, a promise whispered without words. Her fingers, which had been tentatively tracing the line of his jaw, now tangled in the silken strands of his hair, pulling him closer, deepening the angle of their embrace until there was no space left between them. The scent of old parchment and the faint, earthy aroma of his skin mingled with the wood smoke, creating a heady perfume that intoxicated her senses more than any fine wine. A soft moan, barely audible, escaped her throat as his tongue, tentatively at first, then with more confidence, sought entrance, and she welcomed it without hesitation. It was a dance of discovery, a language spoken only between their mouths, a testament to the unspoken hunger that had simmered beneath the surface for so long. The fire, a living entity in the hearth, seemed to roar in approval, casting dancing shadows that mimicked the wild fluttering of her pulse. His hand, which had been resting gently on the small of her back, now moved with a deliberate slowness, tracing the curve of her spine beneath the fabric of her dress. Each touch was a spark, igniting a trail of gooseflesh in its wake. She arched into his touch instinctively, a silent plea for more, for everything. Her fingers tightened in his hair, a silent anchor in the swirling tempest of sensation he was evoking within her. He broke the kiss reluctantly, his forehead resting against hers, their breaths mingling, ragged and sweet. His eyes, dark pools reflecting the firelight, searched hers, asking a question she answered with her own gaze. A silent, fervent yes. A gentle smile, tender and vulnerable, touched his lips before he lowered his head to her neck, pressing a series of soft, lingering kisses along the sensitive skin just beneath her ear. A shiver, profound and delightful, coursed through her, and she tilted her head, offering him greater access. "You are exquisite," he murmured, his voice a low rumble against her skin, sending delicious tremors through her core. More beautiful than any story bound within these walls. Her fingers found the buttons of his waistcoat, fumbling slightly in her eagerness, yet guided by an innate certainty. He chuckled softly, a sound rich with affection, and helped her, his own hands moving to the delicate fastenings of her gown. The air around them crackled with an electricity that had little to do with the static of old books, and everything to do with the vibrant energy of two souls on the brink of profound revelation. The heavy, velvet-lined armchair, which had been her silent confidant during countless hours of solitary reading, now seemed to beckon, offering a sanctuary for their burgeoning intimacy. He gently guided her towards it, his touch firm yet tender, and she sank into its plush depths, her eyes never leaving his. The fire cast their faces in a warm, flickering glow, illuminating the anticipation, the wonder, and the undeniable desire that shimmered between them. His fingers, with a reverence that stole her breath, began to unfasten the small pearl buttons that ran down the front of her gown. Each click, each release of fabric, felt momentous, a step closer to an unveiling she both yearned for and trembled at. The soft lamplight caught the delicate lace of her chemise beneath, hinting at the treasures it held. His gaze, adoring and unwavering, followed the path of his hands, making her feel seen, cherished, utterly beautiful. When the last button was undone, he gently pushed the heavy fabric of her gown from her shoulders. It slid down her arms, pooling around her waist, a silken whisper against her skin. She shivered, not from cold, but from the exquisite vulnerability of the moment, the cool air of the library meeting the sudden warmth of her exposed skin. Her breath hitched as he leaned in, pressing a soft kiss to her collarbone, then another, lower, tracing the delicate curve of her décolletage. "You are breathtaking," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion, his lips leaving a trail of fire in their wake. Her own hands, less practiced but equally eager, went to his shirt. She unbuttoned it slowly, savoring the feel of the fine linen giving way beneath her fingertips, revealing glimpses of the taut muscle and warm skin beneath. The scent of him, clean and subtly masculine, grew stronger, intoxicating her. When the shirt was fully open, she pushed it from his shoulders, her palms gliding over the smooth, firm expanse of his chest. His skin was warm, alive beneath her touch, and she reveled in the tactile pleasure, her fingers exploring the subtle landscape of his muscles, the light dusting of hair, the strong beat of his heart against her palm. He groaned softly, leaning back into the armchair, allowing her to explore. Her hands moved lower, to the buckle of his belt, and with a shared glance that held both permission and anticipation, she unfastened it. He rose slightly, helping her with the trousers, and soon they lay discarded on the rich rug, joining her gown in a silent testament to their escalating desire. Now, only the delicate lace of her chemise and drawers remained, a sheer, tantalizing veil. His eyes, dark and heavy-lidded with desire, devoured her, and she felt a blush creep up her neck. Yet she met his gaze without faltering. There was no shame here, only pure, unadulterated yearning. He reached out, his fingers trembling ever so slightly, and traced the delicate lace of her chemise, just above her breast. "May I?" he asked, his voice a husky plea. She nodded, unable to speak, her throat tight with emotion and burgeoning sensation. With infinite tenderness, he untied the ribbons of her chemise, and it too fell away, revealing the soft, ivory expanse of her breast. The lamplight gilded their curves, casting them in a soft, inviting glow. A gasp escaped her lips as his gaze lingered, a silent adoration that made her nipples harden in response. He lowered his head, pressing a feather-light kiss to the valley between her breasts, then trailed his lips upwards, over the swell of one, before finally capturing the peak. A wave of exquisite pleasure washed over her, a tremor that shook her to her core. She arched her back, offering herself more fully, her hands finding his hair again, holding him close as he suckled gently, then more firmly, eliciting a soft cry from her. His other hand found the curve of her hip, his thumb tracing slow, mesmerizing circles over the delicate lace of her drawers. The sensation was almost unbearable, a delicious ache building deep within her. He moved to her other breast, giving it the same devoted attention, and she felt her body come alive, every nerve ending tingling, every fiber of her being humming with a newfound awareness. "You are perfection," he breathed, pulling back just enough to look at her, his eyes blazing with a hunger that mirrored her own. Every curve, every line, goddess. Her fingers found the waistband of her drawers, and with a shy yet determined movement, she pushed them down. They slid over her hips, down her thighs, pooling around her ankles before she kicked them away. She was completely exposed to him now, vulnerable and utterly alive. A flush spread across her skin, a testament to the exquisite tension thrumming through her. He knelt before her, his gaze sweeping over her body with a reverence that stole her breath. He reached out, his hand hovering for a moment before gently cupping her womanhood. A jolt, electric and profound, shot through her. She gasped, her eyes fluttering closed, as his thumb began a slow, sensual stroke over the soft, sensitive folds. She was already wet, already aching, already yearning for the complete surrender she knew awaited them. "My love," he murmured, his voice a rough whisper. "My beautiful, beautiful love." He leaned in, pressing a kiss to her inner thigh, then another, trailing upwards, closer and closer to the source of her pleasure. Her fingers dug into the velvet arms of the chair, her head thrown back, a silent testament to the intoxicating sensations he was weaving through her. The world outside their alcove, the ancient library, the crackling fire, all faded into a distant hum. There was only hymning, only her, only this profound, undeniable connection. He rose slowly, his eyes locked with hers, a silent question passing between them. She answered with a slight tilt of her head, A breathy whisper of his name, a reaching hand that invited him closer. He shed the last of his clothing, revealing the powerful masculine form that she had only glimpsed before, now fully present, fully hers. Her gaze lingered, taking in the sculpted lines of his body, the firm planes of his chest, the undeniable evidence of his desire for her. A thrill, deep and primal, coursed through her veins. He reached out, his hand tenderly cupping her cheek, his thumb stroking the sensitive skin beneath her eye. "Are you ready, my heart?" he asked, his voice low and laced with concern, with reverence. "More than ready," she breathed, her voice barely a whisper, her eyes shining with unshed tears of anticipation and emotion. "I have waited for you." With a gentle strength, he lifted her from the armchair, cradling her against him. She wrapped her legs around his waist, her body molding to his, and he carried her a few steps to the thick, plush rug before the fire. The warmth of the flames kissed their bare skin, enhancing the intimacy of the moment. He lowered her slowly, until she was lying beneath him, her hands instinctively finding the strong muscles of his back, pulling him closer still. Their eyes met again, a silent communion of souls. He leaned down, pressing a deep, possessive kiss to her lips, a kiss that tasted of longing fulfilled, of promises whispered on the wind. Her hips instinctively arched, meeting his, a silent invitation, a primal dance of desire. He positioned himself above her, his weight supported by his strong arms, gazing down at her with an intensity that stole her breath. Her hand slid from his back, finding purchase in the thick hair at the nape of his neck, pulling him closer. He moved slowly, deliberately, his tip pressing against her entrance, a gentle probe that sent shivers of anticipation coursing through her. A soft gasp escaped her lips as he began to enter her, slowly, exquisitely. She felt herself stretch, open, accept him, a profound sense of completeness washing over her. It was emerging, a joining, not just of bodies but of spirits, of histories, of futures, yet to be written. Her breath hitched, a silent sob of pure, unadulterated pleasure. "Beautiful," he murmured, his voice strained with his own desire, his eyes closed in rapt concentration. "So beautiful." He paused, allowing her body to adjust, to embrace his presence. She wrapped her legs tighter around his waist, urging him deeper, her hips rising to meet his, a silent plea that he understood perfectly. With a slow, measured thrust, he was fully within her, filling her completely, perfectly. A moan, long and guttural, tore from her throat, echoing the similar sound that rumbled deep in his chest. Their bodies locked, intertwined, a single pulsating entity bathed in the golden glow of the firelight. He began to move, a slow, deliberate rhythm that quickly gathered pace. Each thrust was a journey, deeper and more profound than the last. She met him stroke for stroke, her hips arching, her body responding with an innate wisdom she hadn't known she possessed. The sensations built, a crescendo of pleasure that vibrated through every cell of her being. His lips found hers again, devouring her moans, his tongue mimicking the rhythm of their bodies, a dance of exquisite surrender. Her hands moved from his hair to his shoulders, her nails digging in lightly, as the intensity grew, as the world narrowed to the space between them, to the pounding of their hearts, the raggedness of their breaths, the primal sounds of their shared ecstasy. The fire crackled, a fitting accompaniment to the blazing heat that consumed them. The scent of their passion mingled with the ancient scent of the library, creating a new potent aroma that would forever be etched in her memory. She could feel the tautness of his muscles, the velvet strength of his thrusts, the exquisite friction that built and built, driving her higher and higher. She cried out his name, a desperate, joyful sound, as a wave of pure, unadulterated bliss washed over her, shaking her to her core. Her body convulsed around him, a series of exquisite tremors that seemed to last an eternity. He groaned, a deep, primal sound, and plunged into her one last powerful time, spilling himself deeply within her as his own climax cascaded through him. They collapsed against each other, chests heaving, hearts hammering in unison. The world slowly returned, though it was forever changed. The fire still glowed, the lamp still flickered, but the shadows now held a new meaning, a silent testament to the profound magic that had just unfolded. He shifted, pulling her closer, tucking her head into the crook of his neck, his arms wrapping around her in a possessive, protective embrace. Her fingers idly traced the damp skin of his back, feeling the lingering tremors of their shared release. A profound sense of peace, of rightness, settled over her. She had never known such a depth of connection, such an exquisite surrender. It was more than just physical pleasure. It was a spiritual communion, a merging of two souls that felt destined, inevitable. He pressed a soft kiss to her hair, his breath still ragged against her temple. "My love?" he whispered, his voice hoarse with emotion. "My sweet, wonderful love." She didn't speak, simply nestled deeper into his embrace, her heart overflowing with a myriad of emotions. Joy, wonder, tenderness, and an overwhelming sense of belonging. The night was still young, but the most profound story within its hours had just been written, inscribed not on parchment, but on the very fabric of their beings. They lay for a long time, entangled in the quiet aftermath of their passion. The fire had settled into a gentle glow, its embers pulsing like a shared heartbeat. Her skin still tingled, a warm hum beneath the surface, and the scent of him, of their love-making, was a comforting blanket around her. She felt utterly cherished, completely safe, and wonderfully, profoundly loved. He stirred, pressing another soft kiss to her hair, then to her forehead. "Are you comfortable, my heart?" he murmured, his voice still thick with sleep and contentment. "Perfectly," she whispered, her voice husky. She looked up at him, her eyes tracing the beloved lines of his face in the dim light. A small, contented smile touched her lips. "More than perfect." He returned her smile, his eyes shining with a warmth that reached deep into her soul. "I never knew. I never imagined such a thing was possible." "Nor I," she confessed, pressing a kiss to his strong jawline. "It was everything." They talked softly then, in hushed tones, sharing fragments of thoughts, of dreams, of the unspoken longings that had led them to this moment. There was no need for grand declarations, only the quiet affirmation of two souls irrevocably intertwined. The world outside their alcove seemed to hold its breath, respecting the sanctity of their shared space. Eventually, weariness, a sweet and gentle kind, began to settle upon them. He pulled a heavy wool blanket from a nearby chest, wrapping it around them both as they lay on the rug, still intertwined, still unwilling to break the spell. She rested her head on his chest, listening to the steady rhythm of his heart, a lullaby more soothing than any she had ever known. His arm tightened around her, a protective shield against the world, and slowly, gently, she drifted into a deep, dreamless sleep, enveloped in his warmth and the scent of their shared night. The first rays of dawn, pale and hesitant, filtered through the high-arched windows of the library, painting the ancient tomes in hues of gold and rose. She stirred, slowly opening her eyes to find herself still nestled against him, his arm a comforting weight around her, his breath soft against her hair. A profound sense of peace, of belonging, washed over her. It wasn't a dream. This was real. She looked up at him, finding his eyes already open, watching her with a tender smile. "Good morning," she whispered, her voice still thick with sleep and the lingering magic of the night. "Good morning, my love," he replied, his voice a warm rumble against her ear. He leaned in, pressing a soft kiss to her forehead, then her nose, then finally, a lingering tender kiss to her lips. It was a kiss of new beginnings, of a future unfolding. They rose slowly, gathering their clothes, a shy tenderness between them as they dressed. The air was cool now, the fire having dwindled to ash, but the warmth between them was a perpetual flame. They shared a simple breakfast in the vast, echoing kitchen, the mundane act made extraordinary by the silent understanding that passed between them, the shared glances, the gentle touches. The taste of freshly brewed coffee and warm bread had never been so sweet. As the sun climbed higher, flooding the library with golden light, they returned to their alcove, the scene of their profound awakening. The discarded books, the flickering lamp, the now cold hearth, all bore witness to the transformation that had occurred within its walls. She traced the spines of the leather-bound volumes, her heart full, her mind alight with a future she hadn't dared to imagine just yesterday. He stood behind her, his arms wrapping around her waist, pulling her back against his chest. His chin rested on her shoulder, and he pressed a soft kiss to her temple. "This place," he murmured, "will forever be sacred to me. The place where I found my truest story." She leaned into his embrace, her hand covering his where it rested on her stomach. "And mine," she agreed, a tear of happiness escaping her eye and tracing a warm path down her cheek. "I always thought these books held all the wisdom, all the stories. I didn't realize the most profound one was waiting to be written with you." He turned her gently to face him, his hands cupping her face, his gaze deep and earnest. "What we found last night, my love, is not a fleeting tale. It is an epic, an ongoing saga that I intend to devote my life to writing, chapter by chapter, with you by my side." A thrill, sweet and profound, coursed through her. "And I with you," she promised, her voice unwavering, her heart soaring. "Every chapter, every page." He kissed her then, a kiss that sealed their vows, a promise of forever etched in the quiet sanctity of the ancient library. The whispers of the past, of countless forgotten authors and their tales, seemed to rise around them, not as ghosts, but as benevolent witnesses, applauding the new story that had bloomed amidst their venerable silence. The library, once a sanctuary of solitary pursuits, had become a haven of shared passion, a testament to the enduring power of connection. Their story, woven from ancient whispers and newfound passion, was no longer just beginning. It was unfolding, rich and vibrant, a living testament to love found, cherished, and destined to grow with every passing day, every shared glance, every tender touch, in the quiet, magnificent symphony of their lives together. The ink was fresh, the pages endless, and their love, like the knowledge within the countless books, was boundless and eternal.